Rancher sent his mother away. She had $1.4 million hidden in her suitcase. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. A poor rancher in the dusty plains of the American West was struggling to make ends meet. His life was filled with long hours under the scorching sun, endless work on the ranch, and a deep sense of loneliness. His wife, however, was always pushing him to get rid of his elderly mother. "She's a burden to us," she would say. "She's just getting older and weaker. We need that space for ourselves." The rancher, though he loved his mother, found himself torn. Life was hard, and money was always tight. The weight of his wife's words was heavy on his conscience, and one day, the decision was made. With a heavy heart, he asked his mother to leave. She was devastated, of course, but she didn't argue. After all, she had always been a kind woman, never one to hold a grudge, even when she had every right to. The rancher's mother gathered her things quietly, packing a small suitcase. Little did he know, that suitcase wasn't just filled with clothes and personal items. It held something far more valuable, something that would change their lives forever. She left the ranch with nothing but that old suitcase and a sorrowful look in her eyes, knowing that her son, the one she had loved and cared for all her life, had just turned his back on her. As she walked away, the rancher stood by the door, watching her go. A feeling of guilt gnawed at his insides, but he pushed it aside. After all, it was the best decision for the family, wasn't it? But what he didn't know, what neither he nor his wife could have ever imagined, was that his mother was carrying with her a secret worth more than he could ever comprehend. The suitcase she had clutched so tightly contained a fortune, a hidden treasure worth over $1 million. This was money she had earned through years of hard work, money that had been saved for a very specific purpose. As the rancher stood there, watching his mother disappear down the road, he had no idea that in just a few days, his life would be turned upside down. The story of his mother's secret, and the unimaginable turn of events that would follow, was just beginning. Days passed after his mother left, and the rancher couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The ranch had never felt so empty, and the guilt of sending his mother away weighed heavily on him. His wife, though, was pleased with the decision, believing that without the extra burden, they could finally focus on their own future. Yet, the rancher couldn't escape the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake. He had always thought his mother was a frail, old woman who couldn't contribute much to the family anymore. But the more he thought about her departure, the more he realized that he might never understand her fully. What had she been hiding all these years? Why had she never mentioned anything about wealth or resources? The rancher had always seen his mother as a quiet, humble figure, never asking for anything, never burdening him. But now, he couldn't help but wonder if he had underestimated her all along. What was in that old suitcase she had left with? It was too small, too inconspicuous to be hiding anything of real value, wasn't it? Days turned into weeks, and the rancher's unease only grew. He tried to distract himself with work, focusing on the cattle and repairs that needed to be done around the ranch, but his mind always drifted back to the suitcase and his mother's silent departure. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived at the ranch. It was postmarked from a distant city, and when the rancher opened it, his eyes widened in disbelief. It was a legal letter, one that was addressed to him, not from his mother, but from an attorney. "Dear Mr. Jameson, I regret to inform you that your mother has passed away." The rancher felt a lump form in his throat as he read on. The letter explained that his mother had passed away in a small town far away from the ranch, and she had left a will that had recently been discovered. The contents of the will were a shock to him. His mother had left him everything she had: property, money, and assets. The letter also mentioned a sum of money, a staggering amount, $1,400,000. The rancher felt his world tilt on its axis. He couldn't believe what he was reading. He had no idea his mother had been sitting on such a fortune all these years. The more he read, the more questions began to pile up. Why had she never told him about this? Why had she kept it hidden from him? Was it because she knew he would only have seen her as a burden? The rancher felt a deep sense of regret and confusion. The letter continued, stating that the money was hidden in a series of safe deposit boxes across several banks, each one containing part of the fortune. The only catch: the banks had strict protocols for releasing the funds, and the rancher would need to provide proof of identity and other legal documents to gain access to the money. His mother had left him instructions to find the money, but she had also left a warning. You may think this money is yours to claim, but be careful. There are others who would seek to take it from you. The rancher had no idea what his mother had meant by this, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized that this wasn't just about money. Something much bigger was at play here. What had his mother been involved in all these years? Who were these people that would try to take the money from him? With a heavy heart, the rancher knew he couldn't ignore the warning. He had to follow the trail his mother had left behind. But what he didn't know was that this journey would lead him into a world far darker and more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The rancher stared at the letter in disbelief, the words seeming to blur as his heart raced. $1,400,000. The figure seemed too large to comprehend, especially coming from his mother, whom he had always thought of as poor and frail. But now, after reading the letter, it was clear that his mother had been far more than what he had believed. The mention of safe deposit boxes scattered across various banks only added to the mystery. He knew he had to act quickly, but the warning in the letter kept echoing in his mind. There are others who would seek to take it from you. Who could possibly want to steal money that his mother had left behind? As the days passed, the rancher began his journey to find the safe deposit boxes. He knew the first bank was a few towns over, but something about the whole situation didn't sit right with him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Each time he drove into a new town, he would glance over his shoulder, but no one ever seemed to follow him. Still, he couldn't shake the sense of paranoia that had begun to creep into his thoughts. The first bank was a small, quiet place on the outskirts of town, and when the rancher arrived, he was greeted by a middle-aged clerk with a stiff smile. "How can I help you today, sir?" she asked, her tone polite but distant. The rancher felt uneasy. "I'm here to retrieve some items from a safe deposit box," he said, handing her the documents his mother had left behind. The clerk took the papers and gave him a long, appraising look before nodding. "Please follow me," she said, leading him to a back room. As the rancher followed her, he couldn't help but notice the way she glanced over her shoulder, as if checking to see if anyone was watching them. The safe deposit room was small, with metal doors lining the walls. The clerk walked him to a box near the back, her movements smooth and practiced. She slid the key into the lock and turned it with a soft click. Inside, the rancher found a bundle of old documents and photographs, but no money. Confused, he turned to the clerk. "Is this all there is?" he asked. She smiled again, but this time there was something colder in her eyes. "There is no money in this box," she said, her voice suddenly tense. "Perhaps you should check the next one." The rancher's mind raced. He was certain this was the right box. But before he could speak, the clerk was already moving toward the door. "I'm afraid I can't assist you any further," she said, her tone now final. "Please leave." The rancher felt a chill run down his spine. Something was wrong, but he didn't know what. He grabbed the documents and hurried out of the bank, but as he stepped outside, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A car, parked across the street, with a man sitting inside, watching him intently. The rancher's first instinct was to run, but he knew it was too late for that. Someone had been following him, and now, the real danger had begun. He couldn't ignore the warning in the letter any longer. There were people who wanted the money, and they were willing to do anything to get it. As the rancher made his way back to the car, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn into something much bigger than he had ever imagined. His mother's hidden fortune was not just a treasure. It was a key to a world he had never known, a world filled with danger, secrets, and betrayal. And he was just beginning to scratch the surface. The rancher couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. He had followed the clues his mother had left behind, only to be met with cryptic messages and dead ends. The safe deposit box had yielded nothing of value, only a few old papers that didn't make sense. The man across the street had watched him every step of the way, and now, as he drove back to the ranch, he realized that he was being followed. His rearview mirror showed a dark vehicle keeping a steady distance, never getting too close, but always remaining in his sight. It was clear now, The money, his mother's hidden fortune, wasn't just a secret. It was a dangerous one. The rancher's pulse quickened. He tried to shake the feeling of being watched, but it was impossible. Every turn, every corner, felt like it was leading him deeper into something he couldn't control. He decided to take a detour and headed down an old dirt road that cut through the hills. He thought that maybe he could lose the tail, but as he took the winding path, the dark car followed him without hesitation. That's when the rancher knew he wasn't dealing with ordinary people. Whoever was after him had resources, and they were playing a game that was far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The rancher's heart raced as he pulled over to the side of the road, parking in the shadows of the trees. He sat there, trying to gather his thoughts, when the sound of an engine approaching from behind made him freeze. He hadn't heard the car come up, and for a moment, he thought it might be the man from the bank. But as the headlights illuminated his truck, the rancher's fear turned to confusion. The car pulled up alongside him, and a voice called out from the window, "You're in over your head, cowboy." The rancher's hand instinctively went to his gun, but he didn't pull it. The man who had been following him stepped out of the car. He was tall, wearing a dark suit and sunglasses, despite the late hour. He had a calm, controlled presence that immediately put the rancher on edge. "I think you've been looking in the wrong places," the man continued, his voice smooth and measured. "You're not going to find anything in those old banks, and you're definitely not going to find it by running." The rancher stared at him, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice hoarse with frustration. "Just someone who knows about your mother," the man replied, his lips curling into a faint smile. "She wasn't just some old lady with a few secrets. She was involved in something much bigger." The rancher felt his stomach drop. His mother had been involved in something bigger? How could that be possible? He had always seen her as nothing more than a kind woman, an innocent who had been forgotten by the world. But now, as the man stood there, everything about her past was coming into question. "What are you talking about?" the rancher asked, his voice low, wary. "I'm talking about the money," the man said, his smile widening. "That's just the surface. Your mother's life was a lot more complicated than you ever knew." The rancher felt a chill run through him. He had no idea what this man was talking about, but one thing was clear. His mother's secret was more dangerous than he could have imagined. "What do you want from me?" the rancher asked, his hand still resting on his gun, ready to act at any moment. "What I want," the man said, stepping closer, "is for you to stop looking for answers. Because the truth? It's something that could get you killed." The rancher didn't know whether to believe him or not, but he could feel the weight of his words. There was no turning back now. Whoever this man was, whatever his connection to his mother was, the rancher knew that his life was about to change forever. He had stumbled onto a dangerous path, one that was about to lead him into a world of secrets, betrayals, and threats far beyond anything he had ever encountered. And as the man in the dark suit turned and walked back to his car, the rancher realized that the true test was only just beginning. The rancher sat in his truck, watching as the man in the dark suit disappeared into the shadows of the night. His words echoed in the rancher's mind. "Stop looking for answers. Because the truth? It's something that could get you killed." He couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something much darker than he ever expected. The rancher gripped the steering wheel tighter, his mind racing. Who was that man? And how did he know so much about his mother's secret? He glanced back at the empty road in front of him, the headlights casting long shadows on the ground. He had to make a decision. He could either walk away and leave the mystery behind or continue searching for the truth. But after everything that had happened, he knew there was no turning back. The rancher drove back to his house, his mind swirling with questions. Who had his mother been involved with? What had she been hiding all these years? And most importantly, why had she kept it a secret? The more he thought about it, the more he realized that his mother wasn't just a simple woman living on the outskirts of society. She had been part of something bigger, something dangerous. But what? As he parked his truck and walked toward the house, the rancher noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. The door to his cabin was slightly ajar. He had been certain he locked it before leaving. Panic surged through him as he approached cautiously, hand reaching for his gun. What if someone had been inside? What if they were looking for something? As he stepped inside, the faint scent of tobacco and cheap cologne lingered in the air. Someone had been there. The rancher's heart pounded in his chest as he scanned the room, but there was no sign of anyone. However, a small piece of paper on the table caught his eye. He walked over, picking it up, his hands trembling. It was a single, typed sentence. They know you're looking. It's too late. His mind raced. Who had left this note? And what did it mean? Had the man in the suit sent someone to warn him? Or had he already made a dangerous enemy? The rancher's instincts kicked in. He had to get out of there. He quickly grabbed the documents his mother had left behind and stuffed them into his bag. He couldn't stay in the cabin anymore. The danger was real, and it was closing in on him fast. As he exited the house and headed toward his truck, he looked over his shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. He started the engine, his eyes darting around the empty landscape. He knew that staying in one place was too risky now. He had to leave. The rancher drove through the night, heading for a small town he had once visited with his mother. It was a place she had always spoken highly of, a quiet town far from the hustle and bustle of city life. He hoped that there, he might find some answers. Hours later, he arrived in the town, the first rays of morning sunlight just beginning to peek over the horizon. The streets were quiet, with only a few cars parked along the side. He parked in front of a small diner and stepped out, taking a deep breath. This was the place his mother had always mentioned. An old friend of hers lived here, someone she had trusted. The rancher approached the diner cautiously, looking around before stepping inside. The bell above the door jingled as he entered, and a man behind the counter looked up. "Can I help you?" the man asked. He was older, with a rough appearance, but his eyes were kind. The rancher hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm looking for someone. A friend of my mother's." The man raised an eyebrow. "Your mother? Who are you?" "My name's Jameson," the rancher said. "She used to come here, years ago. I need to find out about her." The man's face softened slightly, but his eyes remained guarded. "I see. Well, I think I know who you're talking about. Let me make a call." The rancher nodded, feeling a mix of hope and fear. This was it. The moment he might finally learn the truth about his mother's past and the dangerous world she had been part of. The rancher sat at the counter of the small diner, his nerves on edge as the man behind the counter made the call. The soft hum of the early morning filled the room, but to the rancher, it felt as though the world had slowed to a crawl. He glanced at the menu, but he wasn't hungry. His mind was elsewhere, filled with thoughts of his mother, the hidden fortune, and the mysterious figure who had been following him. He knew he was getting closer to something important. But the question lingered. What exactly was it? The man behind the counter hung up the phone and walked over to the rancher. "I called him. He'll meet you at the old mill, just outside of town," the man said, his voice low and steady. The rancher stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. "Thank you," he said, slipping a few bills onto the counter before heading out the door. The sun had risen higher in the sky as he made his way to the old mill. It had been years since he had been there, and the place looked as run down as he remembered. The mill was abandoned now, its machinery rusted and overgrown with weeds. But it was also a place his mother had often spoken of, a place where she had met someone important, a man who had been a key part of her life before the rancher was even born. The rancher's mind raced with possibilities. Who was this man? What did he know about his mother's past? As he approached the mill, he noticed a figure standing in the shadows, just beyond the crumbling structure. The man was tall, with a weathered face and a calm, calculating demeanor. The rancher could tell immediately that this wasn't someone to be taken lightly. "You Jameson?" the man asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I am," the rancher replied, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. "You're looking for answers, I take it." The man studied him for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "Your mother was involved in something much bigger than you know," he said, his voice low. "I was part of it, and I'm the only one who can give you the answers you're looking for." The rancher felt a chill run down his spine. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. The answers he had been seeking were finally within his reach, but he had no idea what he was about to hear. "What are you talking about?" the rancher asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother was more than just a quiet woman on the outskirts of town. She was part of a network, a group that had been running operations all over the region. She wasn't just hiding money. She was hiding something much more valuable." The rancher felt his mind spin. What could be more valuable than the money? What was she involved in? The man took a step closer, his expression serious. "I can't tell you everything just yet, but I can tell you this. Your mother was a key player in something much larger than anyone realized. And there are people who would kill to get their hands on what she left behind." The rancher's heart raced. He had thought the money was the end of it, but now he realized it was only the beginning. "What do I need to do?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "You need to trust me," the man said, his eyes cold. "The people who are looking for you aren't just after the money. They're after the power your mother held. And they won't stop until they have it." The rancher felt a sense of dread wash over him. He had walked into a world he didn't understand, a world that was far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. But there was no turning back now. "I'll help you," the rancher said, his voice firm. "But you have to tell me everything. I need to know what's going on." The man nodded, and for the first time, a flicker of something resembling respect passed through his eyes. "Good," he said. "But remember this. Once you're in, there's no getting out. You're going to have to decide how far you're willing to go." The rancher didn't answer. He didn't need to. He knew that. His life had already changed in ways he couldn't understand. The road ahead was dangerous, and there was no telling where it would lead. But he had no choice now. He had to find out the truth about his mother, even if it meant risking everything he had left. The rancher stood there, staring at the man, his mind reeling from the revelations. His mother had been part of something much larger than he could have imagined. A network, an operation running all over the region, with power and influence far beyond his understanding. And now, he was entangled in it all. The man's words echoed in his mind. "Once you're in, there's no getting out." The weight of that truth settled on his shoulders like a heavy stone. But there was no turning back now. The rancher had to find out what his mother had been hiding, even if it meant stepping into a world that was darker and more dangerous than he could have ever prepared for. The man in the mill, the one who had once been an ally of his mother, led him down a narrow, dirt path toward a small cabin at the edge of town. The place looked abandoned, but the man didn't hesitate. "This is where it all started," he said, his voice low and grim. "Your mother was a part of something much bigger than just you and me. She was the one who held everything together." The rancher felt a chill run through him. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. "She was the one who kept the operation running," the man replied. "She kept the money flowing, kept the deals going. But she wasn't just a participant. She was a key player. And now, you're part of it too." The rancher's stomach tightened. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. The man turned to him, his expression unreadable. "You need to make a choice. You can walk away, forget everything, and go back to your life. But I don't think you'll ever be able to do that. Not once you know the truth." The rancher swallowed hard. The truth. What was the truth? What had his mother been involved in? And why had she kept it hidden? "The people who are after you," the man continued. "They know you're the one who can take over. They know you're the one who holds the key to everything. And they'll stop at nothing to get it." The rancher's pulse quickened. Who were these people? What did they want? And why was he the one who could stop them? "I didn't ask for this," the rancher said, his voice strained. "I just wanted to find out what happened to my mother." The man nodded. "I know. But now you're in it. There's no going back." The rancher took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. "What do I need to do?" he asked, his voice resolute. The man smiled, a dark glint in his eye. "You need to follow the trail your mother left behind. It's the only way to stop them. And it's the only way to take control of what's yours." The rancher nodded. He didn't know what this would all mean or where it would lead, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't stop now. He had to keep going, no matter what. As the man led him into the cabin, the rancher felt a sense of finality settle in. This was the beginning of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. And as the door creaked shut behind him, he knew that his life would never be the same again. The rancher sat at the small, creaky table inside the cabin, the air thick with the scent of dust and old wood. The man who had led him here was already sitting across from him, his hands steepled in front of him as he watched the rancher carefully. The weight of the moment pressed down on the rancher's chest. This wasn't just about the money anymore. His mother's past, the secrets she had kept, were pulling him deeper into something he didn't fully understand. "What exactly do you want me to do?" the rancher asked, his voice steady despite the growing unease inside him. The man across from him looked up slowly, his eyes cold and calculating. "You're going to finish what your mother started," he said, his voice low but firm. "You've got the keys to everything. You just need to know how to use them." The rancher's mind raced. What keys? What had his mother really been involved in all those years? And why was he, The one who had to finish it? Your mother was a leader in a network that controlled more than just money, the man continued. She was a part of an underground organization that held power over some very dangerous people. People who still want to find what she hid. The rancher leaned forward, his hands clenched on the table. What did she hide? He demanded. The man's lips curled into a thin smile. The thing your mother was protecting wasn't just wealth. It was something far more powerful. Information, influence, and connections that could change everything. The rancher felt a surge of confusion and frustration. You've been talking in circles. What exactly am I supposed to do? You need to secure what she left behind, the man said simply. There are people, dangerous people, who are willing to do anything to get it. They think you're the one who can unlock it, and they'll stop at nothing to get their hands on it. The rancher's head spun. He had no idea what he was being dragged into, but he knew one thing for sure. His life was no longer his own. The man leaned back, his expression unreadable. You've already made the first move. Now, you need to follow the trail she left for you. It's scattered, hidden in plain sight. But if you can connect the dots, you'll find the answers. The rancher took a deep breath. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. The questions piled up in his mind. What kind of power had his mother held? Who were these people after her? And why had she chosen him to carry on her legacy? Where do I start? He asked, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. The man's gaze hardened. You start by trusting no one, he said. Not me, not anyone. You'll know who to trust when the time comes. The rancher nodded, though his mind was a blur. He had no choice but to follow the trail, to uncover the secrets that had been buried for so long. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that this was just the beginning. The man stood up, signaling the end of their conversation. You're not going to like what you find, he warned. But it's the only way to protect yourself and your mother's legacy. As the rancher watched the man leave, the weight of what he had just agreed to hit him like a ton of bricks. There was no going back now. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with threats and betrayal. But one thing was certain, he couldn't stop. Not until he knew the truth. The rancher returned to his home as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dry plains and the worn fences of his property. The events of the past days weighed heavily on him, but there was a sense of resolution in the air, though he could not yet fully understand it. He carried with him the documents and the knowledge his mother had left behind, the keys to a legacy that had been hidden from him for so long. The townspeople had been curious about his sudden absences, but no one dared ask too many questions. The rancher had learned to move quietly, blending into the landscape and the rhythm of the land he had always known. That night, he sat on the porch, the wind carrying the smell of dry grass and horses, and he reflected on the choices he had made and the journey he had undertaken. Each step had led him closer to the truth, and each revelation had shaped the man he had become. He thought of his mother, the quiet strength she had carried, and the sacrifices she had made to protect not just her family, but the hidden power she had nurtured all those years. The fortune, the secrets, the network of influence. It was all part of a larger story, one that the rancher now understood with a clarity he had not expected. He realized that his mother had taught him the most important lesson of all, that true power lay not in wealth alone, but in the wisdom to wield it with care, in the courage to face danger, and in the ability to see justice through even when the path was treacherous. In the days that followed, the rancher began to piece together the final elements of his mother's legacy. He visited banks, connected with old acquaintances she had trusted, and uncovered documents that revealed the full extent of her influence. It was a meticulous process, requiring patience, careful thought, and an unwavering commitment to understanding her choices. As he worked, he discovered that his mother's fortune was more than money. It was a series of investments, deeds, and strategic decisions that ensured the protection of those she cared about. The rancher felt a deep sense of pride mixed with sorrow, recognizing the brilliance and foresight she had possessed. Finally, after weeks of investigation and careful planning, he returned to his ranch. He felt the land beneath his boots, the familiar contours of the hills and the fields he had tended all his life. The wind whispered through the corral and the barn, carrying with it a sense of continuity and life. With the knowledge and resources he now commanded, the rancher was able to secure his family's future, honor his mother's intentions, and restore a sense of balance to his life and his property. He understood that her departure had not been a punishment, but a lesson, and that the secrets she had kept were meant to prepare him for a world he had not yet been ready to face. As he walked through the fields at dusk, the sun dipping below the horizon, he felt a quiet strength settle within him. The journey had tested him, reshaped him, and shown him the power of resilience, wisdom, and justice. His mother's legacy was no longer hidden, and he carried it forward, not as a burden, but as a testament to the love, courage, and foresight she had shown. The rancher knew that life would continue to challenge him, but he was ready. The lessons of the past, the secrets revealed, and the responsibilities he now held were all part of a story that had come full circle. In the fading light, he looked across the land, a sense of peace and understanding washing over him. Justice had been restored, the legacy honored, and the rancher stood ready to face whatever the future held, carrying with him the wisdom of his mother and the strength of his own resolve. In this thrilling tale of Western stories, a rancher uncovers the hidden legacy of his mother, who was secretly involved in a powerful underground network. As the rancher digs deeper into his mother's past, he learns that there is much more to her than he ever imagined. With danger closing in and enemies lurking in the shadows, he must navigate a world filled with secrets, power, and betrayal. The rancher soon realizes that the hidden fortune his mother left behind is not just about wealth, but the power to control a vast network that could change everything. In this gripping adventure, Western stories come alive as the rancher faces the harsh realities of his choices, ultimately learning the true meaning of justice, family, and legacy. As the story unfolds, the rancher learns that the road to the truth is fraught with peril, and only those with courage and resolve can survive. This journey through the rugged landscapes of the American West will keep you on the edge of your seat, as the rancher confronts the challenges of uncovering his mother's secrets and taking control of the legacy that's now his responsibility. The twists and turns of this story will captivate fans of Western stories, proving that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are those who come from within. As the rancher's journey concludes, the final lesson becomes clear. The power of the past is never truly gone, and the truth, no matter how buried, will always find a way to surface. This is one of those unforgettable Western stories that shows how even the most unexpected people can become heroes when they are forced to confront the past and fight for what is right.